How's it going, everybody? This is the Nitty Gritty. My name is Chad. With me, as usual, is Leonard, and this is a show about wrestling. And we are going to be giving you another edition of our segment surgery videos here this week, which we haven't done in a while, where basically instead of a match review or a full episode topic, we will take a segment or a promo from some wrestling company and we will review it and discuss it. In this case, we are going to be tackling something involving Steve Williams. Right, Leonard?
Well, a Steve Williams, but not the Steve Williams that most people know. For those who might not know out there, Steve Williams is the real name of Steve Austin. Stone Cold Steve Austin. He changed his name because of Dr. Death Steve Williams already existing at the time.
Absolutely.
So what we're looking at, I originally sent Chad a promo I had ran across from ECW that Steve Austin had done. He was in ECW very briefly after leaving WCW and before going to WWE. And there was another more famous promo which I found, and we're going to discuss those. But we're going to start with an earlier promo, maybe one of the earliest promos of Austin's career, and it's from February 21st of 1991. It was from Texas Championship Wrestling, a very short-lived promotion ran by Gary Hart out of the Dallas area. It was one of those attempts to get Dallas going again. And in this, Bill Mercer goes into a Hooters to interview Steve Austin and Rod Price, who were working as a tag team. And Austin does most of the talking. This is kind of a standard promo, but there's a bit of that Austin stank on it. He talks about how they're going to the top, how they look good, how they're good in the ring, how everybody wants to hook into you when you're on the top. The best part here is when Mercer asks Austin if he's the brains of the outfit, and his reply is, "Yes, I have a sweatshirt." The implication being he's covering his body, but then Prince tells him to keep the shirt on so he doesn't woo all the women in the place. I said Prince, but it's Price. Austin kind of runs out of gas at the end, not sure how to close it off. Austin stumbles and says, "Drink some chicken wings." And then they all start laughing, and Austin yells, "Cut," which they do. But they leave all the flubs in. If you watch this entire episode, there are flubs all over the place, bad editing, bad cuts. They misspell Kevin Von Erich's name.
Oh, wow.
It's atrocious, but we're not talking about the whole episode. We're just talking about this promo here. And like I say, it feels like very, very much a, beta version of Steve Austin with the way he says things and the humor that is inherent here. But Chad, your thoughts on this promo?
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty standard, green promo from a professional wrestler. But you're right in that you kind of get a little bit of the stunning Steve. You get a little bit of the, maybe twinkles of the Stone Cold type persona, being that they're in what looks like to me a bar or restaurant of some sort.
It's a Hooters. I believe they say
Oh,
that.
they do. You're right. They did say Hooters
before they flow to it. Yeah.
And they talk about, unwinding and, relaxing from working out and all this kind of stuff. You can tell that Steve's still coming into his own as far as talking goes, but you can also tell that he's being himself. It's just he's trying to find maybe what character he wants to embrace. And what's interesting about this is that this is early in his career, but like he's closer to the character that would make him famous here than he would ever be again until he actually became Stone Cold, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But he when you talk about when the guy asks him about being the brains of the outfit, he can tell he kind of catches himself because he's about ready to go off and talk about how he is and how he's the main guy, but then he kind of switches gears and puts over his partner in a very big way. There's a very, very visible, like, I can't toot my own horn too much, like, which I liked. So this was interesting to watch. I had never seen this before, certainly. And when you sent it to me initially, I was like wondering, like I was like, oh, why is this one, being sent? But I liked watching it simply because you get to see him at the beginning or near the beginning anyway of his journey through many different characters and personas that might not have fit the way he wanted them to. But right here, he's being, you know, a good old Texas boy who's trying to, find his footing as far as talking goes.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why I think it's interesting. Again, this is probably one of the earliest promos he ever cut. So a lot of people may know, some may not. Between WCW and WWF, he was in ECW for a very brief amount of time. I think it was maybe less than 6 months. And there's the first promo I sent Chad was one, I don't know how I even ran across it, but he said, "Oh, I've seen a different one, and I found that which is a little more famous." And I think that came first, so we'll talk about that. So this promo is it's about 7 minutes and 40 seconds of just Austin looking at the camera and talking. The length of it is something that surprised me, and how he kind of holds you for the length of it. But in general, he's just kind of going off in WCW and talking about all the lies they fed him and the junk they made him do, according to Austin. This includes him doing impressions of Dusty Rhodes and Hulk Hogan, and then telling him that every idea he came up with was stuff not for him, but how he became complacent and nothing but garbage because of this, since they fed him nothing but garbage. He talks about how after he got fired, everyone came calling, but he chose ECW because Todd Gordon somehow came up with the money. Austin then calls ECW arena crap and how the roster isn't any good. Steve Austin is here to wrestle, and ECW is nothing but violent crap. ECW will find out what Steve Austin can do and what a true superstar is, leading to him using the superstar Steve Austin nickname while there. Again, I think there are traces of what would become Stone Cold here, and it's pretty edgy for the time of him telling stories and calling out guys from another promotion. As I said, this is very long, but I thought was very focused. It's just him talking at the camera, and you're really hanging on everything that he's saying, because 7 minutes is really an eternity for a wrestling promo. So again, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I really like this one. This was a pretty great promo overall. This was like, basically a shoot, a pipe bomb before that term was ever coined.
Yeah.
He's just telling it like he experienced it. And then at the end of the promo, he kind of goes into the fact that he's in ECW and tries to talk about the talent there and what his character in ECW is going to be like, the kind of the standard wrestler amongst all these guys who do hardcore matches. But before that, like, he's basically telling his experience in WCW, and you'll see the theme that runs through these ECW promos is that he's very hurt, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very obviously very affected by the way he was terminated, and you could tell that it really bothers him to the point where, like I said, the beginning of this promo, he's not really playing a character at all. Like he's just telling his side of the story, and I'm sure that's what Paul Heyman advised him to do. Just get on camera and talk about whatever you want, type thing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you're right, though. It is very focused. It's kind of you are hanging on every word that he's saying. Everybody does a Dusty impression. He does a very good one, I would
Mm-hmm.
say. And it's interesting, though, to hear people talk this way about Dusty, because that's not a very common thing to hear in wrestling circles, especially now that Cody is on top in current wrestling. We kind of WWE has a habit of kind of looking back and kind of looking at all these guys like they were just pure idols, and
Mm-hmm.
people forget, or maybe not realize fully, that Dusty was a booker for a long time in many
Yeah.
places, and
Well, I think too, a lot of people who talk about Dusty today, your modern wrestlers, worked with him in NXT, and he wasn't working and booking at the same time.
right, he was just kind of
So
there as a you know old sensei there to give advice.
yeah, yeah, kind of a mentor. So I think the stories you hear today are different, and if you go back and talk to some of the older guys, I think Dusty was always well liked, but there was also the fact that Dusty was booking at the same time that he was working.
Right. Like you always hear
So,
about
so I,
the feud between he and Flair, that
yeah.
was off and on throughout the years. But I found it interesting, that they just kind of like it was just very clear that like WCW had certain priorities, and I would say very few priorities in terms of talent. And Steve Austin was just kind of a guy there.
Mhm.
Like there wasn't anybody there
Yeah.
that was like looking at potential in many people. They were just trying to find their next huge star, and we're hoping that it was, you know, a selection of a few guys. So yeah, I mean, this to me was fascinating though, and I'll share some of my thoughts on the ECW promos as a whole as we get to this next one.
Sure. So the other one we looked at was I'm reasonably sure after the first one, and it was called Monday Night Quill, and it's from ECW '95, part of a segment called Beulah's Box. So Beulah McGillicuddy does a heavily laced intro with sexual innuendo to introduce Steve Austin, making reference to TNT and how it's live. We then get Austin behind a desk in an ill-fitting suit and a bad black wig, obviously spoofing Eric Bischoff. He lets a couple black balloons go and welcomes everyone to Monday Night Quill, where the big boys play with each other. He introduces Bongo instead of Steve Mongo McMichael, who at the time of this recording just got announced to be inducted into the NFL Hall of Fame.
I saw that today.
Uh, yeah, which it's so his bongos just have bongo drums and he sweeps off the desk. He says Brain couldn't be there with them tonight, and he's going to fire him over the phone like he did Austin. So that's where you talk about that raw emotion of how he got let go. He says the main event is going to be a bottle of Geritol on a pole match, and this was before Russo got there, by the way.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah. So with all because of all these old guys in promotion, Austin uses the term "that's the bottom line," which I'm not sure if that's the first time he's ever used that phrase, but it might have been. And he buries WCW and Bischoff some more before going to an opening music video for ECW TV. So this was really interesting to me for a few reasons. And like I said, this was the first one I watched of these three. Is Austin's brief time in ECW between his stints in WCW and WWF is often overlooked or forgotten. And people act like Austin 316 promo was just like a light switch that he flipped on to the Austin personality when that was already in there. And again, all these three, you can see some of the Stone Cold persona. Also, how edgy this was and attacking another promotion and another wrestling talent, that's something we wouldn't really see from the big two until a couple more years down the road.
Right.
Like the DX promo where they dress as the members of Nation Domination, the NWO promo where they dress as the Four Horsemen. It just shows you how far ahead the curve ECW was and how much the big two took from them when they finally caught up. So this wasn't nearly as focused as that first promo. This was, I think, you see more of that raw Austin emotion here as it's just him cutting into Bischoff. And I think there's a lot of kind of stuttering and him not really knowing what he's saying. And I think it's because he has worked himself into such a fervor with this promo, with this concept of doing the Bischoff spoof.
Yeah. This as many times as people talk about ECW and they talk about the downfall and like the bounce checks and this kind of stuff, they really did have some ideas that would prove in the major companies to be good ones. And having somebody just get out there and talk and do sort of a half shoot would prove to be a good idea when it's used wisely. And that's what you have with some of these Steve Austin promos. And um, it was good to kind of see a new side of him in this case. And the thing about this particular promo, and like everybody knows, like some of these ones where he's kind of over the top, like especially the Hogan one. Like I feel like whenever anybody mentions these promos, like we always see his clip of impersonating Hogan, and you can go find that one. It's not very long, and that's why I like the middle promo that we talked about here today probably the most because
Mm-hmm.
that one was raw and really from the heart, and then ended on this note of what his character would be. Whereas this one, as you said, like he's kind of just saying the same thing over again. Monday Night Will, where the big boys play with each other, which is funny. And he just
Mhm.
kind of keeps going back to that. So these are interesting. It would take him a little bit to fully embrace this side of his persona, and here you do see the beginning, the rumblings of what would become Stone Cold. And yeah, I mean, there wasn't much in the way of set design or anything like that. But, he just kind of had a bad wig on. But I do
Yeah.
think that these promos could be they would be perfect, legendary with a little fine tuning here and there. Uh,
Mhm.
but Paul was just he was just doing what he thought would draw eyes, obviously.
Yeah.
And now, like I said, people still talk about these promos, not just us, but they appear on all the ECW documentaries, the Stone Cold documentaries. So yeah, like this one, I think I had probably seen clips of this, but maybe not the whole thing. I certainly didn't remember that it was Beulah's Box, which I'm waiting for that DVD anthology, Leonard. Beulah's Box.
Yeah, I'd pick it up, certainly.
So yeah, I mean, this shows how strong Stone Cold was on the mic. Certainly, the beginning of the Stone Cold character, I would say, is some of his best promo work. After that, he kind of just really kind of centers on the Texas Rattlesnake part of it. But at the beginning,
Mhm.
like that feud with Bret Hart and all that kind of stuff, really had
Yeah.
him sharp as a razor. I would say.
Yeah, as he went on, he got more comical and more him trying to amuse himself, I think,
Yeah.
with in the latter half of his career. And one thing these show too is that nobody is an overnight success. No one wakes up and is their character.
Right.
Rock was one of his biggest opponents, and you go and you look from Rocky Maivia to the Star of the Nation and Domination to The Rock.
Yeah.
You go and look at some of Hogan's earliest promos in Memphis in 77, 78. No one starts at the top. So it's just always interesting to go back and looking at some of this early stuff and seeing, as you said, kind of the little twinkles and the little bits that are there that would eventually form together to create this persona.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Hogan one, he does a pretty good Hogan impression too, as I'm sure a lot of people have seen clips of that one. But yeah, let us know what you think of some of these promos. And the ECW promos are easily Googled. We can certainly put some information about the Texas promo in our description of this.
Yeah, again, that's an entire episode, but I'm sure we can put the timestamp of where that is in the episode.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, let us know what you thought. Check out our other videos as well, random match reviews, what's that card, our full length episodes. And we are available also wherever you listen to podcasts. For Leonard, my name is Chad, and we will see you next time.